about to fire Daniel Snyder in Minneapolis. The owners are there. I saw the picture of the room where they're meeting. Looks a little Spartan for the oligarchs. I would guess that the average room in one of their yachts is nicer than where they'll be gathering to finally rid themselves of Daniel Snyder. And this isn't big news. It's not Pulitzer level stuff. I was told earlier today that the sale is getting approved. Dan Snyder is done. Josh Harris is in. Now, will it be a unanimous vote? I don't know. Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, has a reputation for voting no on anything and everything. Will he have an issue with the structure of the deal? I get the impression they may have looked the other way on some irregularities just to get this thing done, just to get Snyder out. And I've said this. I was on with the Sports Junkies earlier today on 106.7 The Fan in DC, and I made this comment. I want my owner. If my team, my favorite team, is selling, I want my owner to be somebody with unlimited cash. I want him or her to be someone who shows up with a big pile of money and doesn't need minority investors and doesn't need hocus pocus and leverage this and borrow against that. I want somebody who can just write the check. You tell me what it costs, and I'll write the check. $6.05 billion, here you go. And there's more where that came from. Because I want an owner who's got the ability and the willingness to spend whatever it takes. There's no salary cap for coaches. I want an all-star cast of coaches. There's no salary cap for GM. I want the best of the best. And I want every free agent that my team is pursuing to choose to go there. Facilities immaculate, swanky, opulent. Cash flow on a new contract. Boom, you get it all today. You sign, and here's your cash. We're not going to defer it by 6 months, 3 months, a year, whatever. You get the money. You get it all now. I've got the money. I've got the money and I'm willing to spend it. That's what you want in an owner. And given the appearance that they've had to work through some things to get this all lined up, and they had a prospectus that they sent out to recruit minority owners to get involved in the Josh Harris bid, it just makes me wonder, will they be as competitive as they need to be when it comes to having the ability and the will to spend on players, on coaches, on facilities, on anything, on everything? Because I think there is a clear line between the owners who have unlimited funds and will release them, and the teams that end up being more competitive than not. Another question becomes, beyond whether or not Mike Brown will vote. No, I wonder if Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, will abstain, because he's still upset about the John Gruden emails that were sent to the Commanders' server that somehow ended up in the public eye. Will Mark Davis just try to make a statement here and either abstain or vote no, just because he's pissed off that he had to fire a coach that he didn't want to fire? I wonder about that. So will it be 30, and I assume the Commanders have a vote, 31-1, with 1 no and 1 abstention? And will they just go back and redo it with 32-0? A lot of times what happens is when it's clear that something is going to prevail, for the purposes of appearances, they'll go back and redo the vote and make it unanimous. But if Mike Brown wants to send a message, if Mark Davis wants to send a message, then it won't matter. What happens with the team? Now, look, there's going to be a honeymoon period, a grace period, where fans won't care. Like, if you would tell the average Commanders fan, before we knew where this was all heading, if you had said to one of them last year, I can get rid of Dan Snyder, but you're going to have to go 0-17. They'd say, fine, we'll take 0-17 to get rid of Dan Snyder. Well, how many years will they tolerate of not great football? Like, how long until the euphoria over Ding Dong the Witch is Dead becomes, hey, Josh, come on, let's go here. It's not enough that you're not embarrassing us as fans with off-field news and reports and developments and suspensions and lawsuits. That's not good enough. At some point, we got to win some football games. So I'm curious about that. And I was asked on 106.7 The Fan today about Ron Rivera. He got fired by the Panthers after David Tepper bought the team from Jerry Richardson when Richardson was forced out. Here's the reality. Rivera stays if he forces his way back. I think he's got to make the playoffs. I think Jason Wright, the president of the team, Martin Mayhew, the GM, and Ron Rivera, the coach, are all tied to whether or not they get to the playoffs. Now, there could be some business stuff that Jason Wright does that just wows Josh Harris and gets him to abandon whatever plan he would have to put his own person there. Because let's face it, that's what these really rich folks do. They have a network of people they know and they trust. They know their competence. They trust their character. They don't want to deal with someone they don't know. At this point, you get to your mid-50s. I know who I know. I know who I'm comfortable with. I know who can get things done. I don't want to take any chances here. So, sorry, Jason Wright. Thank you for presiding over the transition, but now I'm going to move on. That's my prerogative. It's part of being a billionaire. You can hire whoever you want, whenever you want. So what can Jason Wright do to stay? Who knows? But I think if the team makes it to the playoffs, it's going to be very hard to get rid of Ron Rivera, very hard to get rid of Martin Mayhew. I don't know what happens with Jason Wright. And Josh Harris is going to have a plan. Look, Josh Harris didn't buy this team because he says, hey, here's a modicum of stability. This is the team I want because of all the people they have in place. I mean, it's a team that's available. He tried to get the Broncos last year because they were available. He didn't get them. This year, he got the Commanders because they were available. There aren't many teams out there where you would say, I'm not changing anything. Everything's great. I mean, if I'd buy the Chiefs, not changing anything. If Jeff Bezos is waiting to get the Seahawks, I don't know. Do you say, I'm not changing anything? I don't know. By the time the Seahawks are sold, it may be the natural point to change some things. But, the really great, highly functioning teams don't seem to come for sale. And if they are for sale and you buy them, probably a good idea to stay the course. But I think that we need to wait and see what happens this season. And what happens this season will go a long way toward telling us whether or not there's going to be a new coach in Washington come 2024. Also, will there be a new name? Will Josh Harris keep the Commanders' name? It's only been around for one full season, and this is season 2. Before that, it was Washington Football Team. Before that, it was the name that was abandoned, rightfully so, after 10 years of pressure, after Dan Snyder said, all caps, never. The name is gone. What's going to happen? I liked Washington Football Team, frankly. But will Josh Harris feel compelled to chart a new course and sever all ties with whatever the team was? Now, we know it's not an easy process. It's not something we're going to change the name. It would be maybe 2024 at the very earliest or 2025 before it happens. What's he going to want to do? And I think a lot of it depends upon what the team does this year. The team can perform its way into the name staying. But when you consider that the name just changed not that long ago, not once, but twice, it's another way that Josh Harris can put his imprint on the franchise and say, this is my team. And now's the time to do it because you can call him anything as Dan Snyder is leaving, and the fans will embrace it because they're focused on the fact that Dan Snyder is leaving. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.